Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. Starting a bit late today, I have been down the rabbit hole. Basically since we started or ended last night's stream, I've just continued to just work on walls. If you missed yesterday's stream, essentially I've been trying to set it up so that we can have our kind of dungeon space, which is kind of for the purposes of the demo, like our only indoor area. And maybe this was a bad call, because it's going to be about a day and a half, I think, of work to get these walls up and running. But they're starting to feel a lot closer, and I've kind of even built them in two different ways, just because I wasn't sure about performance, and the easiest way to test that was to just build two different versions and see which one was more effective. They both have their pros and cons, but I like the flexibility of this one, even though I think it might be a little worse performance-wise. But I think overall our project is not that crazy in terms of performance. Being a relatively 2D kind of sprite-based experience, it's not too taxing. And I still think I can optimize it further. But essentially what we've got set up now is I have added more to our prop management system. We now have walls. So I can come in here and I can choose this wall side, and then a wall appears. If I choose the other wall side here and do here, and it's under fence right now. I need to rename some stuff. I can do this short one, or I could just do this normal sized one. And it essentially places it like it would a billboard, but we've added some extra logic in here that's essentially rotating it and scaling it such that it's perfect. We have shuffle on. Let's go here. So we have it now so that we can place these props and they will be aligned. This is a little bit less performant than what we were doing yesterday, which was generating a bunch of meshes. So the stats on this, it feels like, is essentially creating more set passes, but it's creating less triangles and vertices than if we were constructing them out of a mesh. But the meshes also get batched more, but I think this, or sorry, the meshes get a little bit more performant, but these also get more batching, I think. I can't quite remember. Honestly, I've been basically going non-stop, and I'm operating on not a lot of sleep today. But, like, it's coming together. That being said, I am noticing our performance is worse than it was even a few hours ago. Did I do something? I don't know. I'm still going to build all of this to fully complete, to the point where I'm happy with both systems. And there's also a potential we might want to use both. For example, setting it up so that some of these things are, some of our existing props we already wanted to have, like these fences, can now be done on like the front of tiles. And that has definitely some nice flexibility. It just might require a little bit of like digging into to figure out which way we want to build this stuff. The thing I like about this one, even if it is maybe a little bit less performant to do the sprites, is that setting them up this way means that we can kind of have varying sizes. The size of the sprite determines the height that it goes. Whereas when we were doing meshes, we would have to make different sized meshes for each one unless I generated meshes at runtime, which is another option if we really need optimization. We could do some of this work by constructing mesh objects rather than individual billboards. There's so many different ways to handle this, but I'm pretty happy with it. One thing is we can't necessarily walk next to them because of the angles we clip through. So there's some limitations, but I like the way this is feeling. The last piece we're still in the middle of, because I didn't even finish everything, is I'm setting up the kind of what I've been calling decals. So this 008 right now, which is getting harder to click. I might need to figure out a different pattern for selecting these. But I can now have a decal option. So if I clear this, it goes away. And if I choose... Oh, I need to regenerate. It is not recreating this. This is the problem with going live behind schedule, number one, and number two, without fully testing everything, is I think we might be in a slightly broken state right now. So why is this one not... If we go here, we can show the rug, I guess, for now, but essentially this is a asset that Drixie had made that didn't really work as a prop, because when you place this thing sideways on the side here, it's not going to look quite right. But when you place it sideways, the hero would walk, like Hero would walk over it. Obviously it's a bit more kind of crazy with all of the kind of patterning that we've done in order to make it look right when it's actually placed flat. But now I've been able to take that asset and convert it to be a floor mesh, and then I'm basically just placing it without any kind of like angle towards the camera rotation, which allows us to kind of get more flexibility, because we can totally do just like a rug here, and then I can kind of just change the height. It does have some shadowing issues because of the fact that I guess the lighting doesn't quite respect the pattern the same way that the renderer does. I think mostly because of the angle of the light. The light isn't obviously at the exact same position as the camera. No. Sure. Actually, you know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling this one. So I feel like this is coming along. We can potentially fill in the remainder of this texture as well if we need to like just block it so it's not alpha transparency in between. I do like having it be alpha though, for the sake that it probably helps a little bit with compression. But again, I don't know how much that really matters in terms of performance. But yeah, so if we place this thing at 1 pixel height above, it will essentially be right above the floor, and then it doesn't look like Hero is clipping into it at all, which is pretty good. So the thing I was trying to get up and running right before I realized that we were behind schedule and I should be live was I was trying to get it so this prop parser, or more accurately the floor parser, can do subfolders. Before it was only doing the folder you gave it directly, but I'm trying to get it set up so that if I give it props, it'll generate everything down below. If I delete this one and then run it, then it regenerates. Interesting, but if I just delete one of these and hit regenerate, it doesn't. Why does it require... It doesn't matter for today in our testing. I will dig into that later, but I think there's something going on with like the Unity, because if I delete this, for example, and then I hit run, it doesn't work. If we do a reload or a re-import and then run it, that doesn't fix it. We do a refresh and then run it, that doesn't fix it. So there must be a problem in the code that's requiring everything to be fully rebuilt. Weird. Anyways, so then if we run this and we get this wall test 2, and then we run the sprite prop folders on the Demon Castle props and regenerate all of them. And I'm going to just make sure that this is also working here. If we populate all the options so that everything's here, we should be able to select some of these ones here. And then we can choose floor as our option. Let's go back to game view. Yeah, that's showing up. And so the idea now is that rather than constructing each and every one of these walls out of a mesh, we can place them with these prefabs. And I know that the pixel height of this wall is 30. And so we can kind of generate the walls this way rather than being a mesh. We can kind of construct it out of a series of billboards. Again, performance-wise, this starts to go bad because we have to do a lot of set pass calls for every sprite renderer we add. But at the same time, like, we're not rendering as much triangles. We can take a look here, actually. Let's start over. Let's clear. And I should probably do another performance test here, which is probably not a bad thing to capture on camera, honestly, for my own sanity, so I can see how this looks. If we come into here and we choose select nothing on all of these except for our props, and then we go overhead mode, isometric. Let's make this really large. So let's change this one to be... Ooh, we lost it. Oh, because we stopped. Okay, that's fine. I should be doing some of this stuff not in play mode, but if we get our wall and then we select all of these here and change them all to wall test, that should show up. Some of the multi-select stuff sometimes deletes objects, and then if I think I just... Oh, I need to also select all of these ones and raise their pixel height up to be 30. And then I might just need to click on them individually. No, that 30 doesn't set on multi-select. Fun. Alright, so... This is where maybe we might want to combine yesterday's method a little bit with what we're doing here, where it would be nice if some of this stuff was generated. So we could still write a system that essentially presets a bunch of these prop values based off of a raycast of the ground. Not impossible. So yeah, if I select all of these ones here, and I set them all to 30, and then I select them individually. Yeah, they're not, doesn't take that information. The multi-select doesn't work on that. Yeah, so this is a bit tedious. I don't love this aspect of it. I can select all of them and change this option. This is respected, and those all appear, but the actual 30 value isn't. Custom GUI editor issues. So as I'm doing this, we're up to 30, or sorry, 54 set pass calls. But sometimes it modifies and sometimes it doesn't. You can kind of see how that operates if we actually go into like a analysis frame debugger. And then if we enable this, this allows us to kind of see how it's rendering everything piece by piece. So if we come back to say like frame 10 or so, it's doing a bunch of stuff, outputting all of the pieces. We can see it's actually constructing each set of walls individually, layer by layer, kind of coming forward towards the camera. And that kind of like almost paintery style, having to paint the last thing first and then come forward, is part of what's taking such a long time in here. And we are seeing our frame rate continue to drop here too, although it shoots back up to 120 now. We're holding around 60, but that's definitely a lot lower. Some of that is to do with the prop stuff. We're also noticing... Oh, it was because I was at a 1.1 zoom. But yeah, so this is lining up pixel perfect here. So we select this last one and change this to also be a wall piece. And then I'm gonna just drag this out. Okay. Then I'm gonna drag this out into a folder so that we can keep a save of it. which I think we were doing that inside of props prefabs base. We've been keeping backups in here. So we'll make a prefab of this, that way when we stop we can get this data back if we need it. But here, if we take a snipping, with this being set up with walls in this way, we're getting this amount of performance. And then if we, out of curiosity, do we have any console spam or anything? Not really. So if we turn this off, we come back in here. Let's open up the floor objects, and I'm going to turn back on the walls. And then turn off... Right, I have everything non-selectable. But if we turn off this wall, and then raycast to get the wall stuff, the mesh version of the walls up and running, and give that a run and see what the performance is like on that. Unlockable characters with the hydrate. Appreciate that. Ooh. Okay. No walls are displaying here. Why did it not load the walls when we did... I did do the raycast. I thought... We'll try again. Alright, hydrating. So it's not instantiating the walls anymore. But I think it's detecting them because it's adding these extra pieces around the outer edge. Interesting. Any errors? No. Fair amount of warnings, but a lot of that's to do with the entity system. Known issues. So then why did it not decide to instantiate the props? What have I done wrong? This is still showing the correct information here, and the raycast system has Demon Castle and Wall as the content objects to spawn. Let's go take a look. I did modify a fair amount of the prop loading code yesterday while kind of going through a lot of this stuff, so there's a high probability I broke walls while getting the billboard versions up and running. What if we walk near the walls? We can give it a shot. I do have reveal all on. Yeah, so I'm being stopped along the edge here. So it is stopping me from facing. Let's make sure that we're still loading. This is cutscene objects. If content object exists... Oh, that's why. We turned off all the normal prop spawning so that we could see the billboards. It's a debug option that I forgot I had ticked. Okay. How are we doing? So, if we load up these walls, which are working okay now, the performance here we're seeing at least purely on stats is significantly better. Less triangles overall, so the sprite renders are actually... Oh no, sorry, this is more triangles. So yeah, we do have more triangles and vertices when spawning them as meshes compared to spawning them as billboards. But we also have a significant reduction in the number of set Pascals. However, we have more batches, partly because some of the batches are saved here. And again, if we go into the debugger, we can kind of see this here. Analysis frame debugger. Enable this and then go somewhere around 10. We can see that when it renders the walls, it does it all as one pass because it's able to batch everything together. Unlike the sprites, which it has to do piece by piece as they come forward. So there isn't an inherent problem or reason why we can't do it the other way. It is less performant, but we are still holding an okay frame rate. I think the real answer is we probably want both. We probably want walls like this when we want to have a consistent wall shape. But when we want to do like variable sections that we might want to do something unique and specific for, we might want to do something with the billboards instead. If we put them both on, yeah, our frame rate drops. But I think some of that frame rate drop could also just be from yeah, if we look here, we're not deep profiling at all, but like our player loop is 5.9 and the editor is like 11.56, so most of this is coming from the editor. So it's probably a lot of my tooling for the props. If we turn this off and then look at the editor window again. Oh, did I lose it? Analysis profiler. We see here that like we do save 1 millisecond in time on the player, but we also gain like 5 milliseconds in time just from the editor. So I guess technically this is a bad comparison, I suppose. What we really should do is we should bring in the props. So we'll bring these in here. We'll completely break. Oh, we need to, it was offset. We need to bring it in here. Then we can do prefab, unpack completely. Then we can drag this under the room so it'll get parsed. Then we can turn off the walls again, raycast the environment. And then, if we run the game, we should see these props be loaded in tile by tile. And this is probably a more fair representation of the performance. Ooh. This does not have collision on it. It's still keeping the other versions of the walls. These are the mesh ones, these are the billboard ones. Yeah, but even here, even with them both turned on, we can see our frame rate is significantly improved. So I think the billboards, well, like, yeah, you know what? Let's just do that. Rather than try and get an idea of everything, let's turn this off. Raycast environment. Let's load it up and let's check the performance with all the billboards not here, and then we'll turn just the billboards on, and that way we can get more of a one-to-one comparison to see how much cost the billboards are adding. So we're holding pretty steady around like 80 let's clear this. Again, most of this is the editor. Almost half, over half of the performance is the editor currently. Okay, and then if we stop, turn back on the wall pass, and then raycast the environment, and then give that another look at the profiler. We can see here at kind of average point, no spikes or anything, we're seeing 7 milliseconds on the editor, 4.4 on the player loop, and here yeah, ranging from like 4.4 up to like spiking to 5 in spaces. It's maybe an extra like 0.2 on the player. Like it looks like our average holds a little bit closer to like 4.6, 4.7. So I really don't think the billboards are causing that big a performance issue. So I think it's just gonna be a pick and choose. It's like maybe it makes sense to just build like default walls that are very straightforward and simple and going to be the same every single time. We do those through meshes because it's very easy to construct those and they'll be more effective rendering wise. But other times when we want to do something more custom and create a more unique experience, we use the billboard props to potentially create like stair walls or like more geometry in them to make them look a little bit more 3D. They're just two different tools. Like I built both, but I think they both have different purposes and different value depending on what we're trying to achieve. Repetitiveness, go with the meshes. Custom, unique experiences, go with the props. Alright, so there's still bugs here though, so why is it not unloading the floors? If we turn off this and raycast, does it still have the walls? It does. So is this a problem where once we set this, it never gets unset even on regenerate? No, it should get set back to nothing if it finds that there's floor or water there. I guess where they were, there is nothing below them. Let's try raycasting once we hit, let's hit clear and then raycast. Ah, okay, so if I want to clear the walls, I can't just raycast the environment again. I need to clear the kind of data and then raycast. Okay, that's fair. Let's talk about walls. So the wall talk continues. If we turn back on the 3D geometry, now that we know how to disable it, and then we raycast this environment, and even better, let's turn on these ones as well, to kind of create more of like a loop around the space. I did find out how to fix the UVs on the wall. In fact, in yesterday's stream, we were having an issue where I was trying to export a full version of the wall that had the geometry on all sides. And I did find a fix for that. It looks like I am still using the half wall variations in some spots. Oh, for the corners. Okay. And then for some of them, we're still using these full wall versions. But I actually had it working. The UV stuff I did in yesterday's stream was functional. The issue was some of the walls were set to use a weird texture, which made it look like it was broken, but in reality I just needed to swap the material, and I figured that out almost immediately after ending the stream yesterday. So we do have full walls operational with the ability to rotate them. And on the subject of rotating, I'm just going to try and bring this more here. Actually, maybe it's better to do this in place. We were running into a problem yesterday as well where the tops of the walls were kind of only working from one specific angle. So if we flipped it 180, so if we click one of these and we give it a rotation at 180, we could see it work this way, but if we changed it to 90, it wasn't working. That has been fixed. And this one's a kind of a neat one. So what I realized was if we look at a wall like this, if you take that wall piece and you copy it to a new layer and you, so I'm gonna select this, copy it, copy this, and then paste it. And then if I flip this horizontally, no, paste it, come on, and then flip it horizontally, it is not copying what I want. Grab this, copy it, paste it, flip it. Flip it vertically, but of course now we've lost it. Copy, paste, flip it vertically. Okay, so if we copy the whole thing and then flip it vertically, we end up getting this slightly different pattern, and what we'll find is that this pattern doesn't overlap at all with any of the original pieces. Basically what was here on this pixel comes here. This pixel here comes here, and this line essentially cuts all the way down, and then these pixels cut all the way down through here, and they don't overlap at all, and we keep the exact same image but like flipped over itself. And if we take that version where everything is flipped over top of itself and then proceed to rotate it in scene, it will always render perfectly no matter which angle we rotate it on, which reduces the need to create a whole bunch of different textures, which was the path that we were starting to go down yesterday. This is a pretty nice optimization because it allows us to actually get the rotations that I was originally trying to set up. We still do run into the problem though, where in some cases, if it is a wall with a single piece, we can't just rotate it to have like the opposite effect. So if we were to hide all of these pieces on the bottom, we would see that the backs of some of these are still broken. If we were to change this one from a corner wall from the full and go back to the half version in here, it wouldn't display anything, but we can't really rotate it in any way to keep the top correct while showing the information on the front. So we do still kind of need a lot of variations of these if we want to have the back faces not be rendered. But what I was finding was that Unity is actually pretty good at optimizing. If I switch between the performance of the half versions versus the full versions, yeah, I have like maybe an extra 200 or 400 triangles and an extra like 1,000 or so vertices or something. But it like didn't really affect the performance too much, if at all. So I'm gonna just opt to go with having all the walls just use the full version, because it just seems easier. So that one's using the full. This one should use the full version, and this one should use the full version. And that should fix that. And once that's done, we should be able to clean up down here all of the different variations of north, south, east, west, so that we shouldn't need a flip version anymore, I don't believe. I might keep it just for testing purposes. But essentially we get the power of having one texture and being able to rotate the wall however we want. We still will need 3 wall variations at the very least for the corners, because we will need to have a wall variation for this one, and I think that's it. The one problem we still haven't solved on this variation though is the double walls. In order for this to display this like single version, the walls need to be too thick, and for the outer ones we have like some real special case code that just says don't choose anything beyond a certain Y and X axis to kind of cut these ones out. But if we want to use the walls in the center of a space and we try and make them half walls, it won't work. Because it doesn't know which way it should be facing, so it just ends up using an incorrect orientation. We could go with the way that some of these are set up, so we have this kind of north-south walls. If we take a look at one of these, this one has... Let's open it in A-Sprite so it's easier to see. This one has like a bit of a top on it that like has the directionality in both ways, but I don't know if aesthetically I like that option. But it would probably be the easiest way. Otherwise, in order to kind of get like single wall variations of these, we'd probably have to place markers or something to let the system know where it should be facing. Either that or go back to the actual like tile map editing code over here that we're generating and then having the wall rules be different. It's going to require reworking this system, which I have not touched in a very long time, and I don't feel like doing that right this second. So all in, I think that the walls being generated by meshes through this system works okay. It's faster and easier, but it's less flexible. It requires a little bit more work in order to try and get single walls. And I still need to set up the corners. But overall, pretty happy with this as an option. Billboards still need a little bit more work as well, so it's kind of just deciding where do I want to put effort. I think I want to focus on the billboard version because it's just more flexible, and I think I'd like to push it to its limits a little bit just to see, like, hey, if we make a full build that's separate from Unity, an actual executable, and then profile that executable, how bad is it? I'd like to go that route and kind of go big first and then come back to the 3D version that's more optimal if we run into problems. So let's keep repairing this one and improving it. I've set it up now so that if we give the prop folder, which contains all of our props in here, if we have an object in here that says work in progress, it will generate a final. And I've augmented my system so that when it creates this like weird, like kind of fence look to these tiles, when it generates these, it now also auto flips the image for me. We can take a quick look at that just to kind of give context. But essentially, in here, when we ISO an image, we kind of do the normal math for kind of switching all the pixels to create the exact layout I need, and then we just take the whole thing and we just flip it. And flip image is just getting like the screen width minus x minus 1 to find the new x value, and then just taking basically every pixel that's at the end of the width, putting it at the front, and then just working through the whole thing. It's a pretty simple image processing kind of function. But with that, now we can kind of get these rotatable floor pieces without, or top of wall pieces, without having to do any extra kind of Aseprite work. So again, optimize, 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 workflow improvements. Now that being said, I did add something that I'm not 100% sure I'm going to keep, but I had to add the word, like a keyword, to do that flip. I don't love it because it basically, I decided that in order for it to do the generation flip, I added a bool to this, and it must require that the sprite has the name wall in it. I don't love that. I mostly just, I feel like I'm concerned about doing a full parse flip on some of these other like what are these floor tiles, 640 by 640 images. I don't want to do a flip on these ones. Mostly because I think it's slightly more compressible if a large number of the pixels are just transparency, but I don't actually know that for sure. For now though, it needs the word wall in order for it to get processed. And then I made it so that when it outputs these, it actually like creates each of the different prefabs for us. But it removes the word final from it, and it won't make prefabs out of anything that has the word work in progress in it. Or the letters, I guess, WIP is what I mean. But it has to be in that exact order and capitalized, so that we don't get any false positives. So the next problem to solve here with this system is that if we were to bring in this variation into the room, and actually I don't even need to do that. If we run this version and see it live, we'll see that some of the tiles aren't facing the right way. I made it so the 3D geometry generation version is auto-rotating them, but we're gonna have to manually do that as part of setting some of these props. So in here, we can determine the height and the position of this, but we can't determine its rotation. So that's the next thing we need to do. Prop tiles. So we're updating it based off of its height position. We're gonna need some sort of rotation. What probably makes the most sense is, instead of giving it an actual rotation value, because it really should only work on the 4 cardinals, let's just give it a direction, which we'll call facing, which by default we'll say is north, because I'm pretty sure from what we saw yesterday, north is 0, 0, 0. Okay. And that'll be inside of the prop loader. So when we go to place a decal in here, we should do probably... I guess we can just do a new function call here, which is m direction facing to quaternion. And then we can have two variations of this function, one that I can manually put stuff in if I still need it. But I can also just give it a quaternion and then just set it directly. Assuming the values are correct, which they should be, that should just work. Now I'd like that to be a nice little drop down too in here next to the 30 height, I think. So we're going to come into the prop tiles editor. We'll see if we can get that set up as well. So we added an integer value for the height here as an int field. If we did the same thing here for facing, I keep wanting to say direction, so although facing may be more clear, my brain keeps defaulting to direction, so we will just rename it to that. Go with what makes the most sense. Decal, we can name it facing outwardly to the editor though. The question is, do we have an enum field? Yes, but it doesn't like this setup. String label cannot explicitly convert direction to an enum. Do I do any enum flags in any of my other ones that I can use as an example? In fact, can I just do find references? That might be faster. Which will win, find references or find results? It looks like this is the first time I've tried to use this. Interesting. We're gonna go quickly check the Unity documentation. Enum pop-up. We need to cast the output. That's what it's complaining about. So we just need to cast this to a direction. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. That should mostly work then. We should be able to set the direction and the height. Do I care which one's first? For some reason this feels more right to me. So this is gonna work. Couple of problems. Problem number one, it's not updating when I change the dropdown. So we need to move the console app out of the way. We don't need that right now. We need to go into prop tile and need to have like a last loaded direction. That can be something like north-south or something. And when we load, we should save the direction in here. And continue to add to this OR statement that's getting a little too long. If direction does not equal the loaded direction, we should delete the object and replace it. Okay, that should be enough to see it change each time we change facing in here. North-south isn't a valid option. Okay, yeah, good thoughts. Okay, so if we change this to north, northwest, northeast, these options don't do anything. Can't really see the difference between north and south. But I guess that makes sense because it's essentially just flipping. But the issue here is that this quaternion gets it out as if we were to change facing kind of in this cardinal direction. So north is this way. Is this... which one am I modifying? It's going to be wall test. We need to rename a lot of these and give them better names as well. So yeah, this is giving it -90. If we change it to east, it's giving it 90. Okay, so it is working. I think I just need to flip the value here to be 90. Really? Why would changing the X rotate it this way? It does have a pixel height of 30, but that shouldn't be offsetting it in this way. Where is the pivot point of this image, maybe? But even that doesn't make sense because it's not really based off of the image pivot point. It should be in the center of it. This thing has... Oh. The position is modified here. This might just be an order of operations problem, though. Yeah, so we do just need to turn it flat by rotating it on the X by 90. How do I want to handle this? As long as we set the offset after we've done this other stuff, this should be okay. If we do this, does that work? No, we can't add two quaternions together. This gives us out... Let's give it so this function can take a parameter for the x value that we might want to add. is an easy solution. Shouldn't affect anything else. And then we can give it a value of 90 here. Okay. Now if we change its facing, that works. It's just hard to see what's happening with the lattice structure. Let's run the game so we can see it for real. And then we're just going to make sure that the directions make some amount of sense, I guess. So this is north. South should flip it. It does. West points down. And east points up this way. Perfect. So now we can change the orientation of these pieces. So this needs to be north. Now the question becomes, does this auto-select? If we make it so nothing is selectable, and we make it so only this section is selectable, we'll go above, and then select all of these, and then change them all to be west facing, and only update the last one. If we go this way, it doesn't change it. Yeah, there's something about multi-editing on the GUI stuff that I clearly don't fully understand. Because I've set this object to be multi-editable. It just doesn't seem to respect it. Okay. So that's tedious, but again, powerful. And we can build more tooling to fix the tedium. If we want it, we could probably circumvent the... let's change this to this version so I don't have the widget in the way. I could probably change it so that the raycast stuff also works on generating wall props, and it could like be like, hey, here's the props I want to use, or the billboards I would like to be setting in these spots, and I would like to go through, and anywhere you find a height of Y, set them up, and then based off of the directionality of the tile map, set it to have west or north facing, same way. We do run back into the problem that our raycasting geometry system doesn't handle that looks good. Doesn't handle the facing stuff unless we have a too wide wall. But again, these are solvable problems, I think. One other thing I want to play with here is if we click on 1115 and we change this to be a, instead of being a wall side, it was a short wall instead. Wall, short wall. And then we change this down. What is the size of a short wall piece? This is a type of prop, so it's going to be under, I put it under fences yesterday. This is 20 high. So if we then change the pixel height of the top piece to 20, yeah, that lines up. So this is the thing I like about billboards more than the 3D geometry, is the ability to do stuff like this, where we can make a slightly shorter texture and then just adjust the wall piece, and we can kind of get more dynamicness to the geometry, because we're kind of almost hand building meshes out of billboards. In fact, we could probably figure out the height of the raycast as well and do stuff like this and decide which wall texture to use. And especially when we get into it, like villages and stuff like that, if we want to be able to create like custom kind of sides of buildings and have like a gap here for an alley, and then like we want to have variable sizes and widths, like stuff like this I think is going to be really interesting for kind of creating essentially billboarded buildings out of sprite renderers. Does have a lot of set pass calls, but I don't know, maybe there's a way to like build it this way and then like construct a custom mesh. I don't know, I've been down this road before and it's not impossible, but it's also not easy. This shadow feels a little bit off to me. And as it should, because it is a slanted billboard to face the camera, and so the shadow being cast is obviously not going to match as if this thing was really standing here in 3D space. So mixing billboards that are facing the camera and like just sprite renderers that are standing kind of perpendicular kind of creates weird visuals. That I don't think I can solve. I think that just might be the way that this system's going to work. That's also kind of cool because we're kind of testing this and these aren't actually placed here as wall tiles. We can walk in, which that doesn't look terrible. It does kind of look like he's phasing in. We might want to move the character back a few pixels so that we don't see the feet in these types of situations. I think there could be some power to that as well. How far back will we have to move the character? Tile offset's right now 32. If we go back to 20, that should pull the character back 1 pixel set, which looks to be enough for them to not show in here. It does push them up I want to say a fair bit. Maybe that's maybe that's not like it might be a bit extreme to say it's a big push, but it definitely feels like the character's further back in the tiles now. Here the character definitely feels more centered. But if we get the ability to have the character like walk behind and have like a fence tile placed on the same tile that the character is standing on and make that tile still walkable, that's probably valuable. Yeah, I like the volume that that creates. It's a big change. I mean, it's literally the smallest pixel change I could possibly make, but it still feels like moving the position of the player could have other impacts, but I think I like that. Let's bring this back out. And save it again as a prefab so that we can keep this. We'll overwrite the original because now we have all the wall placements and directionality placed correctly. Prefab, unpack completely, add it back. Let's raycast the environment. And then, oh, I want to turn off debug spawn all tiles, and let's see how this looks with the tiles spawning in. Also, I want to check performance again. Oh, interesting. Okay, a couple of things. Number one, let's change those. Let's change these floor pieces here so that they are walkable, not walls. Oh, I have to untick. Okay. And then why is it not maintaining the heights? How does the height get transferred down into the actual game? I believe I am setting this custom offset. Wrong Visual Studio. I might just close the console app. I think we're done with it for today. Oh, I bet you I know what my problem is. Inside of here, we're grabbing the custom offset from the custom prop. We're gonna need to do the same thing for decal, because I think I'm reusing the wrong one. So in here, we should save out the decals. Also, there's a lot of copy and pasting happening here, which is an indication to me that this should be optimized in some way, such that we can just have any number of props. This should be like a list of prop addressable IDs that are coming through, and even just what are being displayed in the prop editor window. And you should be able to add a new one and then default it to front, center, left, wall, whatever, to kind of get the default information you want. This is for custom. That's for custom. That's for custom. This is for the prop. Okay, so if it uses this one now, and we save off the correct one, now we should have the heights actually come across. So we're gonna raycast the environment. And let's give this another shot. Hello, Trixie. Welcome to the chat. Thank you for the cookie. Small things. We are not actually saving off the directional information that we just set up to actually have it come into the game and be used. But before that, we're going to go to the IT_3D player container, and we're going to make a judgment call here. We're going to change this to 2, just for now. And we're going to give that a try for a little while and see if that feels better or worse. And then, yeah, we're going to need... Ooh, that didn't feel as good to me. Just being moved up a little bit, the stand-up looked worse. We're going to have to figure out a system here if I want to have walls or fences along the edge of the same tile you're on. Did I not change this one? I unticked the wrong one, I guess. We're going to have some sort of way of saying you can't cross between these tiles, but you're allowed to walk onto this tile. That's going to be a whole new system that we do not have any idea about. Okay, that probably means that we can't do this style for the demo. It's going to have to be a later thing. But I do want it, because that's going to be really cool. Let's see that jump in again, and then we'll fix the direction on the top of the walls to actually be saved and brought in. I don't know, it's not the worst, it just feels a lot more like they're spread out. Let's go back to the old style just to see the difference just on that. Was it any different, or am I just, confirmation bias almost? Like, seeing problems where there maybe was always an issue? Yes and no. It definitely feels like Hero is more spread out between these two tiles, whereas even just moving this up one unit here does feel a lot more like Hero is like spread out between all four. And I'm pretty positive this is the smallest incremental change we can make to the character. That's half true. If we come under here under tile set, we technically can move the character on only one side. So if we feel like the character's a little too far up this way, we could just do this and have a bit of a split. No, because then the character will look weird if they're ever facing this way when they fall down or get up. Yeah, and if we do anything in between here, one is just a whole switch. Because we've set the system up so that essentially I have a pixel snapper that's doing a bunch of logic to align everything on the grid. I figured out through a lot of trial and error based off our camera settings, this is the exact amount of units you can move. The Y is very odd. This one kind of makes some mathematical sense with the 45 degree, but I think this is because of the 30. I did a bunch of cosine tangent stuff at one point to try and figure it out. I don't fully understand. I just know that with our camera settings, with our rotations, this is the exact amount of Y units. I think there might be some lower level like decimal places, but this has been pretty solid up to 100 above the hover. Like basically we can make an object be so high that it's off the screen or so low so that it's under the screen, and this precision is still close enough that it's pixel perfect. And if we were to turn this rounder off just to kind of show what I'm talking about and then like kind of modify the position, we can see how the character... Oh, right, we have to actually move it here because now it's no longer snapping. As we move between these positions here, we can get like in between. It's very hard to show with a moving character, but you can get like half pixels essentially. I think it's more noticeable on the Y. No, it's still not very apparent on Hero. There. It's so minuscule. Okay, so the scrolling wasn't actually like scrolling like small enough to see the difference, but hopefully this comes across. If you look here at like the light white line here on this wall, if I move it up by like 0.1, it like shifts. And that can also happen here. The pixels will move a little bit as we move here. So the pixel alignment system is basically saying, try and position yourself wherever this object is as your reference, and make sure that no matter how much it moves, you're always moving exactly 1 pixel unit. So if we go too small of an increment, this won't move at all until we get to a full unit, or 0.6 basically amount to one left or the right, and then it'll snap. So that's how the pixel alignment system is working. Again, that took me, I don't know, this is a hobby, so these numbers don't maybe sound more impressive than they should. So like it's like working on it like a couple times a week, maybe even just once a week, but it took me like 3 or 4 months of multiple evenings trying to figure out exactly how to get all this stuff working. Not all at once, but like slowly over time. So that's a slight issue with the fence system, but I guess it makes sense, is that as we walk, the fences kind of just like cut off, and you can see kind of around it. There's like this really hard edge here, but as soon as we move, it like fills in. I guess that's true of like a lot of the walls too, but the difference here is we're adding like a side piece. And in fact, I'm missing that side piece over here, which is why we have like kind of rendering through the edge. Yeah, there's a weirdness to this that I'm not sure how I want to solve eventually. For now, let's add walls on this side as well, which will increase our passes, I think. This I should be able to multi-edit. So we'll add a wall on this side. And then if I reselect it, it actually pops it in. What's our set passes like now? 37. So again, it's going to start small when we first begin, but as we reveal more of these props, it's going to go up pretty drastically. Yeah, we're up to 61. But our frame rate is like 140 right now. We haven't revealed everything, but even still, it's not bad. The UI is also turned off for a lot of these tests as well. I think we're still fine. Alright, let's get the directionality coming in. So we need to save that information the same way we just updated the offset. So we're going to need an extra piece of data inside of the tile data for direction, which is going to be the decal direction. And then the spot where we're doing this needs to be updated to be the same as what we added to the tile prop, which is going to be turning this enum to a quaternion and giving it a custom X of 90, so it's laying flat on the ground. Okay, and then from here, then we just need to actually save this information. So this needs to grab the, or needs to set the direction and needs to grab it from the decal and set it there. And that should be all we need. Save all. And we should see the direction come across. Oh, we may need to raycast again, actually. I had hit play too quickly. Room, raycast. Okay, data should be saved out. It should now load it up. Piece by piece, we're getting there. Alright, next problem, corners. So, let's fix up some of these images. A lot of these are kind of weirdly named, because we've been copy and pasting all over the place. Let's rename this one to wall. Let's just call it brick wall is probably a fine name for it. This can get renamed to oh no. We should have done this eons ago. if we rename this now, we're gonna have to reset all these props up. This is kind of just a limitation of some of how we're doing this stuff with addressables and name IDs. Is we rename all this stuff, we're gonna have to reset all of these parameters. I'll do that off camera. It's going to just be grunt work and it's not interesting. But starting from this point onwards, let's try and get a better naming convention. So this is going to be wall inverse corner. Corner, work in progress. So we're going to grab this one. We're going to show an explorer and we're going to open that up in Aseprite over here. Also, Aseprite's getting a little unwieldy. Let's not save any of these changes and just close all that down. Okay. Now, if we're making a version of this that's inversed, I think it needs to be basically just like this, and that should come across as being the corner. Is this the direction we want it to face? What is the default? North is like unrotated basically, and our normal kind of starting wall looks like this, so this is a north face. I think that's okay. That should be fine. So we'll save this one out. And then if we come back into Unity, as long as we got all this set up properly, we should be able to do props and then run, and it should make a final version of that. It does. And then if we come into props to folders and run the Demon Castle folder specifically, it should make a prop for it. And then if we come in here, save that, populate, we should see a 14th prop appear. And if we come back into the game scene, click on this one and change it from wall test to inverse corner, which is currently under the room decor section, which is also kind of wrong. But if we save the scene and raycast it, we should see that prop appear in the scene, okay? Yep. Not quite set up correctly, though. It looks like I was wrong, and this part should come in here, probably. So this is where it gets a little tricky, because we do need to save, and then we have to come in here, and then we have to do props, and we have to run this. Is this going to auto-update for us? It is not. Do I need to delete this in order for it to run? Yes. But its position offset is defaulted wrong. It gets reset when we run the... when we run the sprites folder to props. But by default, it's all our props are all our sprites are normally a 0.50. But for these floor ones, we specifically want it to be center aligned. It just makes our life easier. That still doesn't quite look right. Is that because we're at ×3? Or just in general? Why is there a tree off in space? Oh, I still haven't fixed that bug. Okay, I'm gonna detour slightly here. This is something I keep meaning to fix. I've looked at it a couple of times in the last few, honestly, hours, and I just haven't gone around to actually changing it. But when we generate the options, we have to construct a object. No, it's not in here. It's in the sprite stuff. Sprite to props folder. We have to generate a prefab here, which we knew. But in other locations when we do this, I'm pretty sure we delete the prefab after. No. Particle folder? This doesn't need to delete an object. Anim sprite processor? This isn't doing any kind of deletion either. Sprites to tiles, maybe? It's doing similar logic. This is what we originally copied our sprite folder from. No, there's definitely a reference in one of my existing files. I know I saw it the other day and I was like, oh, I should copy this because this is how this is being handled. Here, destroy immediately after we refresh everything. So if the file exists, we make a new version of it and destroy it immediately. Otherwise, if it didn't exist, or if it does exist, then we just edit it. So by that logic, I think we should be able to do something similar here. We need to delete the object source that we create. But this is outside of the scope. But if we do it here, this won't exist anymore. I don't think. Ooh, I'm not sure on the timing of this. Yeah, because the other variation had like a whole setup for do all this stuff if we're creating it for the first time. Oh, the hydration okay. You're right. I should drink more water. On it. Thank you. Okay. Let's just make this equal to null by default. Have it exist out here. And at the very end, once we're done everything else, if the object does not equal null, destroy it. Cool. Cool. That should fix generating these objects that exist in my scene every time I make a new prop. What was I doing? This doesn't look great to me. I would like to continue to tweak that art a little bit. This looks too high. I think that might help a little bit because this part also looks too thin. And then I'm a little confused on why I have to keep deleting this every single time. This should reprocess it. Oh, well, number one, I'm hitting fields. So if we run this... have to delete it because I deleted it while we were running. The not reprocessing doesn't seem like a big deal, but the issue is that, like, I want to be able to hand these tools off to Drixie, and I need them to work for her every time. If there's a problem like this where it's like, oh, you have to delete the object to regenerate it, that can be explained, but it's easily forgotten. And I can definitely feel like things are just breaking. This is also an issue too. Sometimes when we delete the prefabs, addressables gets confused. Gets very upset. Interesting. So when I reprocess it, it does set the addressable information. That looks much better. Okay, so that's the angle. So then if we were to add another corner piece, or an inverse corner piece, let's just rotate it. I just want to see what it looks like, actually, more so than seeing a new one. I just want to see the rotations to make sure they're working. So west did not change. It's modifying it. Okay, that's east. That's north. West is identical. Huh. Why are you only working in two directions? If we change this to... a test piece, you rotate every time. Okay. That's a huge problem. That implies the logic I came up with to overlap these things isn't actually rotating it fully. Oh, this is such an interesting problem. So, when I bring this up, like I described earlier, we do a bunch of math to get this latticing. Yeah, it's here and here, but it only appears on certain orientations. So the reason it works for the other ones is it's all the way along on both sides, so we don't realize that we're kind of just flipping it, I guess? Okay, out of curiosity, let's go back to the console app. Let's see what effects we get if we were to flip it not just on the width, but also on the height. I believe I need to -1 here as well for our starting point. And then if we come back in here, delete this variation, regenerate. I can see that didn't do anything. What effect did that have? Well, it rendered it out without doing anything now. We no longer have the lattice structure, we only have one angle. Huh. Very interesting. Does that make sense, I guess? Maybe. Let's find out. Let's do this manually. So if we take this pattern, make a new layer, paste it on the new layer, and then on this layer, if we flip it horizontally, we get it over here. Like basically what was here is now displaying here as well. If we flip it vertically, it appears in this corner. Yeah, and you flip it horizontally and vertically, you end up with it over here. So you can end up with it being in this corner, or you can end up with it being in this corner, but by the very nature of it, you can never have it opposites because then they would be overlapping. Interesting. So if we were to save out this variation, and we were to use this one instead. Also, let's just fix the console app. So we're going to remove the code we just added. We're going to rebuild the image processing tool. And then we will delete the first final and rerun to build it again. Okay, so this is one where they just left right basically. And currently we have set both of these to have a pivot of 0.5 so that they're center aligned. Okay. If we rotate it, basically this angle goes from here to here, but it still ends up displaying the exact same information essentially. And if we keep spinning, then we come up to this one being in the top right. If we keep spinning one more time, it ends up being also in the top right, and then it comes back around. So we never get a true flip version of this. So why the heck do these ones work? So when we rotate this 90, when we rotate this 90, this side is displaying. When we rotate it again, now this side is displaying. Rotate this one, back to this side. Back to this side. It's kind of the nature of flipping across the axis, because we get this full side and this full side. It ends up working, but that can't be right, because if we come over here and we change this to be one of the... I had made a rug piece, and this one I thought was doing what we wanted as well. If we rotate this one 90, we can see, like, I don't know what this blob here is in the corner of the right. And then if we rotate it again, I guess this one has, this is the corner to keep an eye on, because this one has no red at all. All the other ones have a little bit of red. So this corner here is in top right. Let's go 0. It's in the bottom left. If we rotate this way to 90, it's in the top left. $180. Kind of still in the top left. Interesting. So it is changing form. It's just not uniformly moving the way I thought it was. So when we go from here to 90, it actually like flips it so that that corner is over here. And then when we go 180, I think that corner is still here, but the image is flipped. And then we go 270. Now the corner is here on the bottom, but different from how it is on the bottom. So maybe those are the two to look at, 270 and 0. So it's not rotating, it is flipping. And that only works, it looks like it works up here on the walls because it's such a simple pattern. But if we added even a little bit of differential, like just one red dot on the side, we'd see that the red dot is not rotating to the next corner, it's just then flipping to be on the opposite side of it. Okay, so then the question is there a way to make it so it actually is truly rotating? So if we swap this out for this version, for the Final 2 version, which has the information... Oh, I want to validate this actually. So if it's at 0, 0, and we use this version, left and right, that's in these two corners. So this is different. If we then do the number 2 version, which flipped it on the opposite axis basically, now we have it over here in this corner. And so then if we go through the motions again and we rotate this thing 90, so we're going to just do this slowly. Yeah, it does the same thing. It doesn't really matter which axis we're on. It still only shows 2 directions. I thought I was so smart. I thought I was so smart, chat. no. Yeah, no matter what I do, I basically get different configurations of this information being in this corner and this corner. So and it makes sense, there's no way to get this information over here. Because the only way to get that information over there would be to rotate it. But then we just overlap. And because of the nature of things, if we go even 1 pixel up or down, we lose some dimensionality. Like this one has 4 pixels here, and if we try and go like above it, we're going to lose 1 pixel on one side off the screen. So I guess the option then... So this is still possible. The thing we'd have to do then is we'd need to not flip the image. We'd need to tile it. That's insane. Okay, so here's what we can do. If this is our normal configuration, right? If we rotate it such that it is... Oh, that's very hard to do. If we turn off tiling mode, and then we rotate it so it's overlapping. Now we have the 2 of them, one underneath, one on top. And if we turn on tile mode, axis both, and then rotate this up, move this up 1, and then turn off tiling mode, the pixel that we lost here has now wrapped around over to here, I think. And so we have 2 versions of the images, but they're overlapped but misaligned by 1 pixel. So we can't just rotate it. Actually, we should be able to test with this as an example. So if this was our image, we save that out. Yes. When we rotate it, image 3, set its pivot to 0.5 and apply. That looks okay. But then if we rotate it to 90, it's broken. But that's because it's off by 1. So we would need to change the tiling. Ooh, which is going to be trickier to do with a sprite renderer than it would be to do with a actual plane mesh. This is a rabbit hole, but we'll see where it takes us. Out of curiosity, that rotates this way. Oh, we want to rotate this one. That works. That doesn't. And then if we come into the plane and we change its tiling to be offset by a very small amount, 1.1. Oh, not tiling. We want the tiling to remain the same. This is kind of like the scale. We want to change the offset ever so slightly the other way. Whatever 1 pixel would be, which might be a very small number. I guess it would probably be 32 or 1 divided by 32 would be 1 pixel unit. And then we need to turn on this texture to have wrapping. Repeat. This is the correct direction I want to be moving it in. 001. That's not making a difference. 002. Looking at the actual game here to see if any of this changes. That changed. I would have thought this would have worked. But it is not working the way that I would anticipate it should have. Because I would think that if we modified it just ever so slightly, it should snap back into rendering the right pixels again. But I guess it doesn't work that way. Yeah, because I guess technically every time we rotate... Yeah, we can't just place it on a random spot. Because it's always going to pick the same pixels. These are the pixels it chooses. And if we rotate it, these are the pixels it chooses. So it's only going to choose one of the two options. So if we wanted to have it do this, we'd need it to create the exact same pattern. Otherwise, it's just not going to pick the same ones. Which I don't think we can generate that pattern if they're both facing the same way. Yeah, no. Okay. A lot of research here, but I think what I'm coming to is that we can't just have one image and then rotate it. To get every configuration. It works for the walls, edges, but it won't work for the inverse corners. And to be fair, I'm not 100% sure it's going to work with even regular corners. Okay, let's try corners real quick. I'm just curious to see now what that'll do. What would a corner shape look like when it gets inverted? It's so funny how I just so happened, like, that this all worked perfectly for the regular kind of like side pieces, that these could be rotated however I wanted and it was fine. It was just a lucky coincidence that made me thought this was going to work way better than it actually was going to. So if we're making a corner piece, I think it's this color, like that. These are normally 4 long each. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very hard to see. And these overlap perfectly. So when we get to the edge of the previous green section, that's when we stop. And I think that's a corner piece. Let's process that. And if we bring that in here, let's get rid of the plane for now and bring in the sprite renderer again. Let's do corner. We're just going to manually update these things for now. We're not going to generate new props. I just want to see how this works. So if we come into here and then we rotate this one to 0, what happens? It flips. And if I go 90, it goes the other way. If I go 180, it goes that way. If I go 270, it comes back this way. So yeah, so it's not actually rotating the image, it's just flipping the image. And it just looked like it was rotating the image with the other ones. Okay. So that saves us a little bit of texture work, because if we combine 2 pieces into the same texture, we do get away with being able to have one texture containing the information of one texture having the image of 2 pieces. But no matter how we try and layer it, I think this is 2 axes. I think I can't just move it on the X to get it to align the way I want, because it's in a completely different set of pixels. I think if I play with this enough, I think there might be a way to get it to line up. Yeah, because if we zoom in, let's bring it to the center field. Let's do a... Oh, I'd need to copy it over. That's fine. We can do that. Let's just grab this piece, and instead of being on 0.15, you can move to 5.9. Sure. So then, just move Hero out of the way. We're zoomed in a whole bunch here. Now we can see a lot better. So there is a line between these pixels. So we need to move this in such a way that that line disappears. No, maybe it will never pick the pixels I want. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Part of me feels like there must be a way to get this to work. Like, there's so much empty space in here. We should be able to find some configuration of rotating this axis of data to fit somewhere else inside of this structure and have it be rotatable. But I think it is just like the angle that the camera's looking at. It's only going to grab a certain set of pixels, which are going to be in this kind of lattice structure, and it will never see any of the ones in between just because of the way that the image is being distorted. I feel like there should be some way of, like, you know, changing the tiling of this such that we are essentially offsetting that lattice. And maybe we can change where the lattice is being viewed from. We can never change the form of the lattice, which is what I'm trying to do here. Because this overlapping image here is trying to get it to pick these pixels instead of these pixels on this. Like, it's just offset. But there's no way to do that? That feels wrong. Like, it feels like there should be some amount of offset that we can create that, like, causes it to snap back into viewing properly. But we're also rotating it. So maybe we don't rotate, we just move. When we start it, we're looking at the top and the bottom, right? Yeah, so in order for us to see if this is working, we need to see pixels on the right and left. No, I don't think that's going to work. That's doing what I was expecting. It's not pixel perfect. There's still one pixel on the left here that's down here instead of where it should be. But by offsetting it by just one pixel amount, we can get it to render the information on the other subset of pixels. Interesting. So the rotation was the part that was messing this up. That makes sense, actually. Rotate here. No. I'm running into the same problem. Okay. There's a way to make this work. But am I just solving a problem because I'm passionate about solving the problem, or am I solving the problem because it's something I actually need to be doing? I feel like it's the first one. I'm just stuck in a loop of like, this has to be solvable. I need to find the solution. And I've stopped seeing the forest for the trees, and all I care about is solving this issue and not about actually making a video game anymore. Which is fine. That's how I got a lot of the really good stuff that we have so far. It definitely can be useful, but I just don't know if it's what I should be doing right now. It just seems so close to being something. The fact that I can alternate, even if it's not perfectly aligned, but just changing this value from like a 0 to a negative 0.03, and it swaps to the other mesh or the other pixel data hidden inside of this texture, feels like we're really close. The problem is that the information hidden inside of that alternating texture is just in the wrong orientation. We want it to be over here now. And then we want to be able to rotate it in order to flip this one to here. And then we want to be able to have the offset plus a rotation in order to flip it over here. And then we could have one texture, and then when we want to rotate it to a different orientation, we just change the offset of its tile mapping on its material. It'll need to be instanced so it doesn't modify other materials. It does mean we'll need to create a material for every single ceiling tile. That can be automated. That's not so bad. And then what is it saving us? Like, what is the result of this? It saves us having to make a rotated version of the texture. Because if we want to solve this in just the sprite renderer way, if we have this one and that's the bottom one, I think all we need to do is come back in here and then just redraw this the other way. Yeah, technically it's a little harder than that, but I think we just need to do something like this. I don't know the exact like layout of it, but we'd do something like that, and then we'd save as that as the alternate corner. Then we need to process it. And then we would just use this one. And we could flip this by just doing 90-degree offsets to change its orientation. And then we could come into this one and use the alternate version. And then we could still use 90-degree rotations. 180 rotations in order to flip it. Would 180 work for the first one as well? If we go back to this one here. Yeah, so we'd just do 180 for depending on orientation. But we would need 2 sprite renderers. So we'd need to have 2 different sprites be drawn, one facing like this corner, one facing this corner, basically 2 different orientations of each sprite. We'd need to then convert those into final versions that can be latticed and displayed in isometric. Then we'd need to create potentially 2 different props, or we try and generate one prop with the 2 wall textures so that they have 2 different sprite renders and we toggle back and forth between them. First time chatter on Twitch side. Termisoil? Is this 3D pixel art? It is. It is. I've been struggling for a little bit here, just trying to solve, just getting it so that this top texture is flippable no matter what orientation we want it to be in. But I'm doing a bunch of really crazy stuff that took me a very long time to figure out, and it looks like I'm at a point where I'm just going to need 2 different textures, and I'm lamenting that basically. Because no matter how I rotate this thing, it's just going to keep alternating between the 2 forms. It's either this form, this form, this form, or back to the first one. And this only works because I've embedded the texture twice. If I only had one version of the texture, yeah, it is tricky. So basically I've been working on this project for 4 years. First 2 years is a different game, and then taking all the same tech and working on something with a bit smaller scope. My wife Trixie's doing a lot of the art stuff, but I'm doing a lot of the programming and design with the tech tooling. But just trying to get Unity to cooperate with 3D geometry and spacing while having it display pixel perfect, so every single pixel is exactly where we placed it. When Trixie makes a piece of art, I want it to be there. And for the most part, this does work. Like the fact that I can like essentially position this wherever I want. I can add like walls in different spots. Is like a lot of this is doing exactly what I want it to do. It's just, I don't know. It's just this top texture piece. I just don't want to make a bunch of different versions of the images when it feels like I should be able to get away with one image and a little bit of math. We're way over time though. It is sad though because it's a couple of new faces coming in here, but we should have stopped for lunch half an hour ago. What do we want to do? We should have stopped half an hour ago. I've been totally in the zone, just absolutely like dead set on solving this problem. But I think we're probably going to need to call it here. Hopefully folks follow and Discord and YouTube and all the other things. I'll be around. A lot of this content, just heads up, is me rambling through a lot of problems. I'm not fully tutorializing or explaining things, just kind of working through my engine on stream and using the streaming as a bit of rubber ducking to help me solve problems. Content's a bit rambly, always has been. But for now, I think I'm going to call it. We're going to do a break for dinner. We'll be back probably in about an hour, so around 2:30 today, and then probably go for a little bit longer. Actually, I might not have time for a second stream now. I'll update on Discord, but yeah, I need to go get lunch. And then I'll keep working on this stuff, and I will try and figure out how to solve this, but we will try again in hopefully in an hour, but we'll see. For now, though, this is going to be totally signing out. Later, folks.